We're going to go ahead and get started here. It's a couple minutes after 10, so we want to kick it off. Again, first of all, really a huge thank you to everybody for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time as always. We're going to try to be respectful of it and keep this as brief as possible while giving you as much of a taste of this really cool functionality that Speco's got to offer as we possibly can. Again, my name is Richie Scholl from Worthington Distribution. We're joined in the room here today. You'll probably see once we start sharing some video from the recorder by Barry Hampy. He's our customer service and technical sales manager. So we'll be seeing more of him in a moment. And then we also have on your screen Brett Keller, who is our Speco rep. Brett's going to do a quick intro here. I just wanted to say really quick, we really appreciate the relationship that we have with Speco. And it enables us to do things like what we have today for the webinar. And we've got this demo equipment to use so we can show you what this functionality is all about. We're super excited because we've been a long-time Speco distributor, and it's been really cool to see the evolution of technology that Speco has offered, not just keeping up with the market, but really being a leader in many ways. If we look back at one of the first revolutionary things we saw in the video surveillance business from Speco was the built-in PoE switcher. It was just awesome to plug an IP camera into a recorder and have it just pop up on the screen like 40 seconds later. And that alone was huge. And then we go into notification, and now with some of the AI and the video analytics that we have, they've really evolved that beyond even just human motion or vehicle motion to where we're going to show you guys a bunch of license plate recognition and face detection today, and it's just incredible what we can offer you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brett for a moment to do an introduction and say a few words, and we're going to get right into it.
Richie, thank you so much for those kind words. We greatly appreciate the partnership with Worthington. The history is tenured and certainly a legacy partner of ours. So thank you all for joining the webinar today. I think, what Richie has prepared is really in depth and really gives you a flavor for what the capabilities of these, solutions really are. And it's important to know that, these, what they're going to show you, they do exactly what it's supposed to do, and it works, which is awesome. But what's more important is that, it's really it's really a benefit to the end user and to the dealers, but it's only as good as what's known. So it's really up to us as the dealers and the sales force to really educate these end users. And by doing so, this is going to give us leverage to really help differentiate us from some of our competitors that are out there. So when it comes to quoting, a particular application, touching on some of these analytics and these capabilities are really going to differentiate us from the market offerings and really help us close some of those deals that, may be price sensitive or maybe, we're getting undercut on, whatever it may be. Really selling these feature sets are really going to enable us to capitalize on the true capabilities of this. And without further ado, Richie, please take the helm, as they say, and let's see what we got.
Thanks, Brett. All right, so a couple of kind of disclaimers and a few things to kind of kick us off here today. First of all, there's a name in the presenters on the attendee list called Worthington Q&A. Barry's got another computer in the room there. He's watching that. So if there is anything, if you have any questions, because we're kind of in this webinar mode, we can't hear you if you speak. But if you could type any questions you have in that Q&A, we'll hop on that right away. If it's an in-depth question, we might take it to the end, but we'll try to jump in on those. There's a good chance if you have a question, somebody else probably has the same one. If it's something we can't answer, we'll bounce it to Brett, and if we together can't answer it, we'll certainly look it up and get it back to you afterwards. Let's see, a couple other things. If you had pre-registered for the webinar, you would have gotten an email from us pretty recently this morning that had a pricing sheet. A couple of things on that. We don't typically talk about actual costs on these webinars. For anybody who may have missed it, we're going to go ahead and post this on YouTube this afternoon, and we really try our best to keep dealer pricing off the internet for your benefit, as well as all of ours, is to kind of keep that consumer price pressure to a minimum wherever we can help it. So we did that. But a big part of the component, or I should say a big component of what we're going to discuss today, really is about the pricing. When you look at the features that we're going to show you, they're very cool, but when you consider what you're getting at the price point you're getting it at, it really takes it to a whole new level and makes it even more exciting. So I hope you got a chance to look at that. If not, please take a look afterwards, because I think it really brings some perspective to this whole thing when you see the features you get, how easy it is to set up, and how affordable it really is for you and for your customer. Last thing, like I said, we're going to record it, or we are recording it, so you'll be able to watch later if you have any questions. And with that, we'll jump in and get into it. We've got a few slides, then we'll jump into a live demo, which I think is what we're all really waiting for anyway. Quick outline of what we're going to cover today. The first thing and really the main theme here is what is intelligent analytics? What is this all about? It's something that we're seeing more and more in the industry, and it's come down, I think, through some of the retail and some of the social media type platforms with facial recognition. We see it more and more all the time. Now we have it available to us for video surveillance installations. Specifically, we're going to touch on facial recognition, human detection, vehicle detection, license plate recognition, which is actually one of my favorites. This is a really cool one. People and vehicle counting, which in the landscape we're in right now with this pandemic, pretty interesting applications for that. And also line crossing and how that kind of fits in. We will talk about the notification options. Anything that we mentioned above under what these intelligent analytics functions are can cause notifications. Think of it as the analytics is the input and the notifications are the output. How do we know about these things that are happening? We're going to talk briefly about what features are available on the different models of recorders. There are two different series that are kind of in play here, and there's a kind of slight difference between the two. We'll talk about compatible cameras and why that's important, and then we're going to jump into that live demo. So first thing is, what is intelligent analytics? What is this all about? And to be really brief, the camera and the recorder are going to work together to analyze the video stream as it's coming in. So from the camera over that IP wire and coming right into the recorder, they're going to analyze that in real time and look for specific characteristics, whether you set that up for vehicle detection or facial recognition or people counting, whatever the case is. These devices, the camera and the recorder, are working together to take a look at that and figure out what it is and then bounce that information to you in real time. And when we say real time, you'll see when we get into the demo, we can have a license plate show up in front of the camera. The NVR recognizes it, and you have a text on your phone in about 2 seconds from when the camera shows up in front of or from when the license plate shows up in front of the camera. Very quick and very efficient. So that's at the very minimum, or at a very low level, I guess, is what intelligent analytics is all about. More specifically now, on facial recognition, this gives us the ability to pick out faces, and I should really say specific faces, not just any face, but specific faces from the overall scene. So the camera and the recorder are going to analyze that video that's coming in. They say, hey, that's a face. And then it says, oh, hey, that's not just is that a face. I'm just going to run that through the database that I have stored. And is this a face that I know or is it not? We'll show you more about how you can group them and how we can kind of break that down. Excuse me, but that's kind of what the facial recognition starts with. It gives you the ability to choose a face during the playback and show all the clips where that face appears. So what's really cool about that, and I think the takeaway from that particular bullet point is, yeah, we have the ability to store a database of faces, and that's great, and that gets us a lot of things, maybe known bad guys in a retail environment or known good guys in another environment. But the availability or the ability to tag a face later and then go back and search for it is huge. Think about a grocery store. We have our local grocery store down the road here. We actually have a local dealer who's a huge Speco customer actually of ours. And over the last, I want to say 5 years, has kind of methodically been going through for that grocery store and upgrading their video system. Before that point, it was a really old analog system. And we're talking the old box cameras on the mounts with wires hanging off of them and like separate lenses. So really dated stuff. And he's gone through for them and updated that. And there's probably, I want to say, in the neighborhood of like 60 cameras in this grocery store. And it's not even that big. We're in a rural area. It's a small town kind of area. And it's flooded with cameras. And it's pretty cool. Like I'll see once in a while on Facebook where they'll post somebody's face that they got off the recorder who was shoplifting. There was somebody who went in the meat aisle and like stole a bunch of expensive steaks, literally shoved them in their jacket and walked out the front door. But they found them because they had it on video. And this was years ago. So if we fast forward to now, take that application, for example, and say, okay, we've now got a guy who is a known shoplifter. So we pick out their face in one spot on the video playback and then say, show me every other time they've been in here. Or better yet, let's take that face, stick it in the database as a known bad guy, quote unquote, let's call it, and say, now I want to get a push notification or an email on my phone the next time I see that guy. So it makes it super easy to go back into the future and catch him. So that's one way we can kind of use the video analytics from a face recognition standpoint. I spoke a little bit about the database. We can for an example, you could have like allowed faces and disallowed faces or one or the other. We can also have a checkbox, which I'll show you on the recorder here, which is strange faces. So this is a face that's never been entered in any group in your system, but you want to know about an unknown face, it'll pop up. As far as adding faces to the database, we can do that by either just picking them out of the video playback. We can take a picture with any kind of a camera, put a JPEG onto a USB, stick that USB right into the recorder, and load it that way. Or the easiest one, honestly, and we'll show you this too, is to just add them through the app. You can go right into the app on your smartphone and add them that way, and it's really quick, very easy. And the last bullet point, it works with masks. I mean, how timely for the situation we're in now. We learned, we entered like my own face in this one without a mask on, and then later I had the mask on, and it still gets 100% match sometimes. Sometimes you get down in the 90s, which is still a fantastic match. So really cool stuff there. More to come on that in the demo section. And then we have human detection. So distinction between that, facial recognition is we're picking an actual face out, and then we're going to compare that to the database and see, does it exist in this database or does it not, and what do we do from there? Human detection says, okay, I just want to know when there's a person there, not a specific face. So if we kind of take this and kind of talk about evolution again, in the past you might have stuck a camera by somebody's front porch or maybe by their garage, and you can say, I can have this recorder send you a quick text or an email anytime there's motion there. Yeah, that's great. Let me know that. Well, if the tree blows or if a squirrel walks through it or any kind of motion, it's going to go ahead and trip that, and you get that notification. Up until now, I think that's okay, but the technology has gotten so far. Again, it's such a great price point. We can do better than that now. So now we can say, human detection, I only want to know when there's a human there. I don't care if it's a deer, if it's a squirrel, if it's a car, a leaf moving on a tree. Just let me know when there's a human. So we can do that, and we ignore those what we call nuisance triggers. Vehicle detection is pretty similar to human detection. In this case, we're not so far as looking for license plates yet. We'll get there. But at this point, we're just looking for vehicles. And we can differentiate cars versus motorcycles versus bicycles. You actually have that granularity in the interface to say, what do we do when these types of vehicles are detected? Or on playback, you can say, I'm looking for a motorcycle. Don't show me clips with cars and don't show me clips with bikes. Just show me motorcycles. Again, for that, maybe a theft or some sort of an incident that you're trying to go back through your history and look for. So that's that one. License plate recognition. This one is absolutely amazing. Now, there are some caveats here that I want to get out of the way first. There are license plate recognition cameras. Then there are, which really just focus on the license plate. You're not going to see anything other than the license plate. This particular license plate recognition that we're working on works with a standard camera. So I'll show you in a moment, but one of the regular images that you're going to look for, it's actually this bullet camera here. You'll be able to see how we get that license plate recognition and how that comes up. But in this case, we're actually able to recognize the license plate, recognize that it is a license plate, and then convert that plate number to actual text that we can work on. So what's cool there is that the license plate, when the system sees it, is an image, right? It's a video stream. So the recorders can actually stop it, grab that in the background, and then convert those numbers on the plate to text, and that's when it can start to work for it. So at that point, it says, okay, what plate numbers do we have in our database? And then we can compare them or say it's an unknown plate or whatever we want to do. So example, again, friendly and unfriendly plates, we can do that. We can alert users to plates in a specific group. So maybe there's, a certain, maybe known troublemakers or known good people. We want to alert when they're in a certain place. We can do that. Again, alert to unknown plates. And then we can search playback by plate number. What's really cool here is, and I keep emphasizing we're working with text here, you can go to the playback, type in a plate number or a partial plate number for that matter, and you will find every time that plate has driven in front of your camera that has the license plate ability in it, it's going to show up on your screen. So you can see that really easily. Just a really, really cool one. This is the kind of the combination of a lot of technology coming together. License plate recognition takes pretty high resolution. So until recently, we couldn't get high enough resolution cameras at an affordable price to make this worth doing. And also, I think just how far video analytics in general have come, coupled with that pricing on the cameras, makes this really a doable and pretty easy feature to use.
And Richie, just to build on this license plate recognition, it's like if there was an instance where there was a rock thrown through a window and you only caught the end of the license plate. So in this instance, 502, you're like, I know the license plate ends in 502. You can go into the recorder itself and just type in 502, and I'll pull in all the license plate, and then you'd be able to depict which car is associated with which license plate, so you can find the perpetrator at hand.
Yep, absolutely. So that's really cool, and that's one where this is the kind of stuff whenever we do webinars and classes on video surveillance, I feel like always, not so much, you guys, the dealers and installers that are on this, but I think your customers, the end user, has like this Las Vegas mentality. Like, we can blow up an image 47 times and enhance it and see somebody. And that's really not the case. And I think people really expected a lot out of these systems. And in the past, we've really had to set expectations and manage expectations and say, here's what we can do and here's what we can't do. But now with stuff like license plate number recognition, a lot of the things that people are asking for, we're not really managing those expectations anymore. We're saying, yeah, no problem. We've got that. We can do it. So this is a really, really cool one. Human vehicle counting, it counts in either direction. So I guess to kind of explain this, if you can look at the image here, you can see in this case, we've drawn a line kind of up and down this door, and we said A is on the left and B is on the right. So now, because we have directionality and a vertical line, you could also work with a horizontal line. You can do either way you want. We can say A to B means people are coming inside the store, and B to A means people are exiting the store. So now it'll count in either direction, provide a real-time number of how many people are in the space. You can actually see on that screenshot there, it's giving you an idea of how many people have entered and how many have exited. So you can kind of see how many are left in the store. Obviously, right now with capacity limits in so many places, this is really cool stuff. On the other hand, even if we, when we look to the bright future, when we're out of this pandemic that we're in right now, the ability to have some really cool information for store managers is really cool out of this. Even if we're not worried about how many people are in the store from a safety standpoint, just to track, shoppers in a retail store is really, really cool. We can say, on an average day, how many people do we get in? So we could actually set this up to say, reset this counter every day at midnight. So we get a daily counter. Then you go back and look at your history and say, well, Monday we had 35 people in the store. Tuesday we had, 37. Go up to Friday and Saturday, there was 50, 60 people in the store. So for a small, like a mom and pop retail type outfit, they can start to plan out what kind of manpower and coverage they need for shifts based on how many people are in that store. So you can get this history, this analytical history, to make data-driven decisions versus, we think it's busier on the weekends than it is during the week. You get actual, numerical data to put to it. This is a really cool one that we can use as well.
And Richie, same with promotions. If there's an instance where
Yeah.
there was a promotion, on a Monday, and we want to, comp that to last Monday to see, if there's incremental traffic into the store, we could actually see a true depiction of how many people actually came into the store. Was it a successful event? What needed to be, revised, and really make those game time decisions from the data itself.
Yeah, it's a great point. This is one of those things, and it's just one of those features where you will blow people's mind. Like when somebody asks you for a video surveillance system and you quote them and say, oh, by the way, I can also set up, maybe I'll charge you a little bit more to set up some of these advanced features. But if you want, to know how many people are in your store on a given day, that's mind-boggling to certain folks. So it's a really cool feature. Next one is just general line crossing. In this case, we're not counting the people. We're just watching for somebody to cross the line. So again, here we've got this vertical line with B on the left and A on the right. And you can say, let me know anytime somebody goes from B to A, or let me know anytime somebody goes from A to B, just a way to kind of watch what direction people are moving in. This is also known as Tripwire. That's one that you may hear kind of an industry term. It's Tripwire. Notification options. So far we've talked about what I would call the inputs or the triggers, and that's, what are we watching out for? What are we tagging or marking kind of in the background on the recorder? Now it's, okay, we've stored the video, we've made these tags automatically, it's happened for you, but what do we do with them? Well, there's really a ton of different options. So one of the ways is a push notification to the app. I kind of see that as one of the more popular ones. We've got it set up here. In fact, it was pretty cool. You'll see on here, we have a crew that comes through the office a couple times a week to do the cleaning. And this is our training room. So it's really only occupied when we do events like this, or back in the good old days, we had in-person trainings, so it's kind of underutilized at this point, but it's on the rotation for cleaning. So this has been set up, this equipment, for probably the last 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks or something like that. And when Barry and I were in here setting it up, we set up my phone to get some of the notifications. So I'm at home one night, and I get a notification that says, we call it the university room. So it says university room, dome camera, human notification. I'm looking at it, and I had never thought it would happen because I hadn't really put two and two together. But the cleaners were in here, and they kind of staring right at the camera, like, what is this stuff? And so there you go, we have a face. So we'll show you on the video, but it's pretty cool what you can see there. So push notification to the app is one of the most useful ones, especially if there's a known issue that you're looking for. So maybe you've got a place in a in a business that's fairly secure, you can start a database of all the people who should be in there, and then say if anybody is detected in there who's not in this database, whose picture is not on file, I need to know about it right away. And as I said, about 2 seconds after that face comes in front of one of the cameras, your phone's gonna make a sound in your pocket, and you know that person's there. That's one way. To kind of take this to the other side, one way you might want to not use that is every time a face is detected on a camera for an entrance to somebody's store, you're just going to get bombarded with emails and push notifications. Maybe not necessary, but again, we have the ability to kind of trim this down. We can also do a local buzzer on the NVR where it will actually make a buzz tone to let you know that somebody's there. We can do a pop-up video on the NVR, which is kind of what you see on your screenshot there. That's a pop-up. We can do an email message. So in a business situation, maybe you've got somebody who is kind of responsible for, again, I go back to that grocery store thing. You might not want to buzz their cell phone with a push notification, but they could get an email message when a known shoplifter shows up. So that would be on their email. Pop-up message box, similar to the pop-up video. We're just going to get a quick message that comes up on the recorder that says, one of your triggers has happened, and here's what's going on. Couple of little advanced things here that aren't shown on the slide. One of the really important things that we have here is some pretty advanced scheduling. So we can make any of these, some or all, I should say, of these notification options happen based on a schedule. So maybe I want to be notified if somebody's in the parking lot, but only from 8 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. I can set a schedule for that. Schedules can be based on what the event is, or they can be based on the user. Maybe certain people want to be notified 24/7. Other people only want to be notified after hours. There's so many ways you can do this, but I think the important point to really drive home here is that as you set this up for your customer, you've got the ability to say, when do these notifications happen and who do they happen to? So there's a lot of flexibility there. All right, features by the recorder series. There's two recorder series in play here. We have the NRE and the NRL. The NRL is going to be your more basic series. It's available in a 4 and an 8 channel. It's going to do the human detection, the vehicle detection, the people and vehicle counting, the line crossing, and it'll do two-way audio. So if you have a two-way audio capable camera, or if you can use the audio output on the recorder through some other wiring and ways to do it, you can hear what's on the camera and you can speak back to it. So a lot of cool options there. If we move up to the NRE, that's available in your 8, 16, and 32 channel models. It's all the same features. The only difference is that one has the facial recognition. So I think pretty much the easiest way to boil this down is if facial recognition is an important feature to you on the particular project that you're working on, that you're bidding out, you're going to bounce right to the NRE. If you're on
Rich, I just want to chime in. License plate recognition is also only on the NRE, so that's not on the NRL.
Okay, thank you. So if those features are important for you, you're going to want to bounce to the NRE right away. If you're doing your more basic, maybe a residential installation, a small installation, I would say go with that NRL. And I would say in that case, you can do your basic ones. You're still going to get your detection based on general stuff. So is it a car? Is it a person? We still have that ability. But if you really want to get into the granular stuff, like what face is it? What license plate is it? You jump up to the NRE.
And what's awesome about these two recorders is that they're all on the same exact operating system. So there's no learning challenges associated with trying to switch between an NRL and an NRE. It's the same exact operating system and it's the same exact interface. So, once you learn one, you learn them all.
Yeah, same app for the end user. So your experience and your customer's experience is the same no matter what. The wall mount models. This is one that I think is one of Speco's coolest things that's I think is somewhat underutilized. I don't know of anybody else that does this, but for both the NRL and the NRE, you can get W models, which stands for wall mount. It's fantastic if you're not using a rack, and it makes for a much neater installation. I think when these first came out, it was meant to be covert. So it looks kind of like an alarm panel on the wall, or maybe a power supply for access control, or even an access supply. It's just another enclosure with a lock and key on it, right? So nobody knows what it is. So at first, I think these were kind of marketed as the covert way to do it because it avoids that smash and grab. You hear these instances once in a while, and maybe you've had it happen to a customer where somebody breaks in, they realize they're on camera, so they're gonna scour that place so they find the recorder and you yank it out and take it with them. That's a problem. So in this case, nobody really understands that it's a recorder. It's blank on the outside. It maybe would have you could put your sticker on it, but it doesn't say it's a recorder. It's just another box on the wall. It doesn't look like a recorder. So that obviously has some value. I think the other cool thing, though, is if you're not going to rack mount the recorders, or if you don't have a good like shelf spot or a desktop space to put them, these are just way neater. The reality of these recorders, especially if you get into like your 8 and especially 16 channels, you got a ton of wires coming into these things. There's a wire for every camera. There's the wire going back to your Ethernet, your power wire. You've got an HDMI output. It goes on and on. So these wall mount models really clean that all up. You've got some holes in the back and on the bottom to bring the wires in. Close it, and it's super neat, super clean. It just makes your work look that much better. So kind of an honorable mention here. Don't forget that these are available. Everything is the same price in wall mount or desktop mount. It's just a different model number. Camera compatibility, we want to talk about this really quick. Just as important as making sure you pick the correct recorder, whether it's the NRL or the NRE, is picking the correct cameras. One thing that's really important to mention here is that not all the cameras support, some of them don't support any of the analytic features, and some of them only support certain analytics features. So it used to be, before we got into analytics, I think the mentality of setting up a job was, how many cameras do we need? Do we want indoor, outdoor, dome or bullet? What kind of features do we want? And then you just get the cameras, get the recorder, they work together, and you're good to go. That still is the case. Any Speco camera is going to work on these, but if they're not on this compatibility chart, they're not going to support the analytics functions. So that's where you want to kind of watch out for this. Our team here can help you for sure. We've got access to this chart. We'll make sure that you guys have access. In fact, if you go on Speco's website and look at any of the recorders, one of the downloads is the camera compatibility chart, which is where this comes from. This chart that you're looking at is not complete. It's really just a snapshot so you can see how the chart works, but we'll make sure you get the complete one. So basically what you have going down the left side is all the models of the cameras, kind of a description of it, what kind of resolution it provides, if it's motorized lens or not. And as you go across to the right, you start to see all the different functionalities, like do we have motion detection, vehicle license plate detection, facial recognition. So as you start to build out that job, and really it starts as you start to interview that customer that you're doing the work for, it's what features are important to you. Well, I definitely want facial recognition. Okay, so right away off the bat, we know we're looking at those facial recognition compatible cameras. Or no, I'm not so worried about that, but line crossing might be cool, or human detection might be cool. So just kind of keep an eye on those features as you pick out your job. So again, kind of the short story, the way to boil it down there is, if you're unsure of the camera compatibility, give us a call. We'll chat that out with you and help you get it. Make sure you have access to the chart. But it's really important here because you don't want to go back later. You want to get the right camera for the application the first time. It'll make things a lot smoother for you. All right, we're going to hop into the demo. So give me a moment here to kind of switch things around on the screen. Shout out to my 12-year-old son for helping us find this software. It's actually pretty cool. We have the HDMI output of this recorder wired into our computer, and now we're going to actually switch to that. So you're going to see that instead of me. Thank goodness, right? So here's the NVR. This is an NRE. This is the 8 channel that we have, and that's the unit that's right on top of the desk here.
Richie, if you could swing it over to like the main screen. Like
yeah, we're going to go over to this one.
Perfect.
So we're going to make that as big as we can for you, and I think you guys are about, there we go. That should be about as big as we can get it for you. You can move that around a little bit and have a look. So hopefully you're seeing the recorder with us. So a couple of things here. This is the main screen. You're looking at the live image. This is a little different for us for webinar. Usually in webinar setup, you see whoever's presenting, and behind us, this time you get to see kind of the whole disaster we have going on here. There's wires all over the floor to support this, and kind of the tripod up there. So you're looking towards the front of our, and there's Barry saying hello, and you're looking towards the front of our training room now. We have 3 cameras on there. We really simply named them Bullet, Dome, and Turret. Those are the 3 across here. We can get into some more details on those if you guys want to see them specifically later. But that's what we've got. And then on the right-hand side of our screen, and let me actually bring up my, on the right-hand side of the screen, there's that column with the blue header on it. It says target detection. That's going to kind of show you some of the things that the cameras are picking up. So let's get into it here. So I'm going to go over and hit the menu on the bottom left, and I'm going to hit settings. Now, for me, the settings popped right up. We set it up on this recorder to not prompt us for the password every time we go into the menu. I would not recommend that in a production installation. We consider this more of a test/demo installation, so we feel it's pretty safe. But I would say, for your customer, they're really going to want to have to enter that password every time, so not just anybody can see this. Couple really quick things. If you've used a Speco recorder in the last few years, I would say, you're already familiar with this user interface. This is the current most up-to-date interface that Speco has rolled out. It would have been on the NRLs, NRPs, those kind of recorders. And now that comes up into the NRE as well. So to get us to where we are now, what Barry and I did when we first set this up, we unpacked everything. We plugged these cameras in, gave them, like I said, about 40, 45 seconds, and they popped up on the screen. That was it. We then went into camera, and we, by default, where I have the name here, bullet, dome, and turret, those names came up with the model number of the camera. So that's the default naming system that Speco's got. So we went into edit, and we named it. That's literally all we did to get to this point from a camera standpoint. The other thing that happens when you first power up the recorder for the first time, it comes up with the easy setup wizard, which takes care of those things that kind of need to be nailed down before you get started. It's what's your password. So again, another thing, if you've not used one of these current model recorders, or if you're new to Speco, as with so many other things that are connected to the internet these days, we are super sensitive to data security, information security, password security. So gone are the days of either no password or a default password that just comes up on this thing. It's going to prompt you to enter one. So the first time you power it up, you've got to enter a strong password. So you go ahead and do that. We did that. It also asked us, do we want to turn on NAT? That's NAT. It's a network term, and that's how part of the way we set up the app. We did turn that on, and you should, and I'll show you why in a moment. And then we kind of got to the screen where we could get into setup. So we named the cameras, and that's about all that we did here. I'll take it back out to the main screen. And we pretty much got to this. If we kind of go through a quick tour of what we've got on the main screen, if we double click any camera, it goes full screen. Down here in the bottom left, we can go back to our multiple view options. We have the 4-up selected because we've only got 3 cameras. I could do a 9 or a 16. There's a number of different ways to do it. We can do a sequencer where different ones pop up. And then we can also have the ability to toggle the on-screen display. So if I turn that off, the information you're seeing is coming from the cameras. If I turn that on, we're starting to see the blue means we have a scheduled recording turned on. The red here means that we're recording at this very moment. And you'll see later when we walk in front of it, you'll see like a little yellow guy moving, and that shows that we've got motion detected on that camera, and we're going to do something about it. So that's kind of how that one works. Here we've got our playback. You can go into that and start to play back video. And what's really cool here is you can go, there's a couple presets here, a couple seconds ago up to a couple minutes ago. So really easy to go back and find your recent playback. We've got the ability to turn manual recording on. So if you have channels that were set to only record on a schedule or on events, this would be a way to turn the manual recording on. If something was going down that you want to make sure you're catching, you could do that. The next couple of things have to do with the alarms, the alarm status, manually turn on an alarm, disk status, stuff like that. Not stuff that's super commonly used, but it's there. A couple of things I want to talk about because we have this manual record. If you've ever joined any of our webinars in the last, 10 or 15 years that we've been doing this, you've probably heard me say this, but for those guys who haven't, I'll say it real quick. And Brett, this is credit to Jimmy Pascal, because he's the one that taught it to me way back in the day. We don't really recommend part-time recording. So I think when we started to be able to do motion-based recording, and even now we've got all these fancy analytics where we can say only record if we see a face, only record if we see a car, and you think, man, I can save so much storage space, which is a big benefit because these days we store a ton of video with these high, or I should say it takes a lot of storage capacity with these high megapixel cameras. The problem is, and Jimmy called this proving a negative. So if somebody comes to your grocery store that you did this camera install at and say, hey, I slipped on the ice here at midnight last night and I'm suing you guys because that ice shouldn't have been there. Well, if you're on motion-based recording, there will be, if they're lying, if that wasn't really there and they're trying to pull one over on this grocery store, there will be no video there. So you as the installer can say, well, yeah, you're lying because I don't have any video, but that's not going to stand up in court. If that actually gets so far as going to a court, going to a jury where this guy's going to be awarded some kind of a summary or some kind of a judgment for this ice incident, if you can just say, well, hey, my recorder only records when there's motion and I don't have any recording, so there, he wasn't there, it's not going to fly. If you go back and say, hey, I've got video time-stamped midnight of the night of the alleged incident and there's nobody there, that's going to go much better for your customer in court than just, I don't have any video. So for that reason, that's my quick, hopefully relatively short diatribe on why I believe you ought to just always be recording. The analytics and the motion-based stuff is nice for notifications. It's nice to go back and be able to quickly find events, but I wouldn't say you should only record when you have that stuff. So that's the soapbox on that one. The next really cool thing that I would point out down here is this information button. If you click on that, the first place it takes you to are 3 really cool, really important QR codes. The last one is the one you scan to just automatically grab the iOS app. The middle one is what you need to grab the Android app. Keep in mind, if you just go in the App Store and search Speco, you'll get the app you need, but there are a number of them now because as Speco has, we've had Speco recorders that can support apps for a long time now, and as the technology gets better, we need newer apps to support the newer features. So because of that, you'll see a number of them on the App Store, so this will take you to the proper one right away. So you have your customer grab that. For reference, it's called the Speco Blue app, just so you know, on this series recorder. Then this first one here, which has this N2F number, that's the serial number of this particular unit. So when you get the app, now you're going to have your customer open up their app and go to add a new system, and all they've got to do is pull up the camera in the Speco app, scan this barcode right here, and it's going to go right in. You're not going to have to deal with port forwarding, DDNS, all that kind of stuff. This just does it for you. It's more of a cloud-based system that Speco's got, and it simplifies the installation dramatically. I can't even explain how awesome this is. Before we had the QR code set up, I would honestly say our #1 tech support item for recorders was not, how does the camera work? How do I set up the motion detection? How do I play back video? It was, I need help getting this recorder on my customer's phone. And the reason it was such a hassle is every router is different. So when you're going into a Netgear router versus a Cisco router versus whatever, the terminology is different, and it's honestly, it's kind of troublesome. So this really eliminates all that. Super easy to do, and it's just awesome. So keep in mind, you hit that information button down there, and that gets you right to it. The other reason that's cool is after the first time you set up your customer, there's a good chance they're going to want to add somebody else and somebody else to be able to see these cameras, and now they can do it on their own. So that's there. Next thing, what we really are here for is the analytics. So everything that we're going to play with in the analytics category is on this top right called AI/event. So if I go over here, the first thing we're going to see in the top is the name of the camera. I've got 3 cameras on the system, and again, I named them Bullet, Turret, and Dome. So we're going to mess around with the Dome camera first. Now I have categories going across the top. Facial recognition. LPR is license plate recognition. Then we have people and vehicle people, vehicle, and perimeter detection, and then we have some other more miscellaneous ones. In the facial recognition area, we'll talk about that for a moment. We've got detection, recognition, and then a database. So the first thing we need to do is turn on detection. IPC stands for IP camera. So we check that off to say, yeah, we want this IP camera to be looking for faces. So enable that functionality. Step 1 is done there. Duration is how long does that face have to be in the camera before we start looking at it. We have a snapshot interval and a snapshot number. That's how long is it going to, once we see that camera come in there for 3 seconds, or that person come into the view for 3 seconds, how long are we going to keep looking at that person? How long are we going to track them? And then snapshot number is within that one interval of how long that person passes through that scene, how many snapshots do we want to put into the database? How often are we going to stick them in there? And then after that time expires, it kind of starts over again. We catch them again. So that's what that is. Face exposure, if you want to do that, is kind of how much face do you see before we consider it a good grab. And then if you do the display range, this one, if we adjust the min and the max when I enable this, if I move these numbers around, it'll move the green boxes around, and that's kind of where in the camera are we going to look for these people. So you've got that. As far as the draw over here, we're looking at the entire image, but I could, if I were to check that box, I could select, say, I only want to see if there's people here. So it's kind of up to you on where you want to look for that facial recognition. So I've got kind of pretty much the whole image done. I'll leave it that way. So that's the recognition. The trigger mode is what notifications are we going to allow. These are the ones that we talked about in the PowerPoint. Your snapshot that comes up on the screen, your push notification to the phones, all that sort of stuff. We'll save it. Now, if we go over to recognition, now we get to see really more of what we do based on who the people are. So the first thing is successful recognition and stranger. So successful recognition means we found somebody, and if I go under successful recognition, it's who did we successfully recognize. Here, I have all groups selected, but if I go into the filter and take a look, I created a group called approved. These are people that I consider to be approved in the area that I'm looking at, so that's who I want to look at. And then based on seeing those successful people, we can do things with it. So right now, I do have it set that every time I walk in front of this thing, it sends me a push notification. I've also got a pop-up set up, so we've got that. Again, so many ways to do the schedule. Here's a couple different ones, weekdays, weekends, all the time, never, or we can go into manage and really kind of create an even more granular schedule, drill it down even further. So we have that, that kind of option. Yeah, then we've also got the alarm output. I fail to mention that sometimes. If we do the alarm output, there's actually a bunch of contact closures on the back of this recorder that we could take to anything we want. So maybe, maybe if somebody's detected inside a store after hours, we can trigger that into a lighting system to pop all the lights on, or maybe as an input to the alarm system. Maybe you don't want to set the alarm system off, but at least cause another notification, maybe to a different group of people.
And
That's
Richie,
yeah.
Sorry, just to jump in, with facial recognition and Speco access, it ties in very nicely with one another. So you could actually unlock doors with double authentication or single authentication. If a recognized face comes up to a door to the trestle, it'll automatically disengage the lock and grant access to whoever may be authorized to do so.
Great point. Yep. So yeah, so that's there. And then stranger. I kind of feel like stranger is one of the most important ones in here. The cool thing is now what we're saying is, we've put in a list of all the people who we allow to be in this space. I want to know when it's somebody other than that group. That's what stranger means. It means I recognize the face, but I can't find them in the database, so you need to know that. So again, it's really pretty similar between successful recognition and stranger. The only difference is with successful recognition, we're saying we add this group to say who are we looking for. But then stranger, we get the same, the trigger outputs. We can say who, what are we going to do with this trigger? How are we going to notify the users? So that's kind of the big thing there. The other thing I would mention is this can be different per camera. So the schedule, and especially under successful, the face group, I can have a different group per camera. So it's really easy to say, these people are allowed in this area, but this other group of people are allowed in this other area. And you've got a camera in each area, so now you can kind of see who's where. So that comes up. So let's go ahead now that we've shown you how that works. I'll go ahead and if I left that alone enough and didn't mess with it, I'm going to walk out in front of the camera here and see if we get the notification that we expect. So I'm in front now. And there you go. So that we had a pop-up. Now this is on the main display. We're not in the settings right now. It showed 100% match. And you see my face there. And I could actually hit the playback. We have that set to that pop-up to go away. If I hit the play button there, I'd actually play the recording that was taken during the snapshot where my face was there. Another important thing there, you saw 100% match. Depending on if I was moving really quick or if I had something, maybe a hat on or some glasses, you'll see that match come down a little bit. But you do get the notification of how much the match was. So that was a pretty quick explanation on the facial recognition. But that's kind of what you're going to see. I'll show you some of the notifications on the phone separately. We're going to share our phone to the screen so you can see that. The one thing that I didn't get you to, though, is the face database. It's kind of funny. I put myself in, and yes, that's my son and my daughter there. My daughter was here after school yesterday. The difference you'll see here is the first two were added by selecting a face out of the playback. Let me show you that. We're going to say add a face. We're going to put a name in as just test. And I'll select a face. And now the way this works now is this is the easiest way to add a face, I would say, from the recorder. The app interface is easier yet, but we'll look at this one. If I just hit search, I have today selected. So there's Barry. That's every face that it caught today. And you can see there's actually 2 pages of it. I just have a couple of them in there. But here's a pretty good one. I could add Barry from this one. We hit select. And then I would put the name in and hit entry, and now Barry would be in the database, and I could pull him up later. For now, we will not add Barry because that actually is a pretty good way to show a stranger. The reason the picture looks different for Jillian is because that one was added using the app. So that's actually a picture off of a smartphone versus one that was pulled out of surveillance video like I just showed you with Barry's face. So that's how that goes in there. We're going to cancel that. So that's pretty much everything you have with face recognition. I would say if you were going to set one of these up, the only really like tweaking time you would have is with these parameters on the right under rule. It's how long does this person have to be in the scene before we actually consider it a good face grab? How big do we want to see their face in the scene? That kind of stuff. And that's one where as you start to work with this more and more, you'll know what you need to do there and how it works in different scenes with different lighting and how far the camera looks and all those different kind of things. But that's kind of the short story on detection there. License plate recognition you will see is grayed out here. That's because the dome camera that I have doesn't support it. But if I move over to my bullet camera, that one actually doesn't support face recognition, but it does support license plate detection. So LPR, license plate recognition, again, we always start on the detection screen because that's where we enable it first. This would have been unchecked by default, but I checked it right here. And then again, I drew the entire screen. I could just do a small area and look for license plates there. What size, I don't have that enabled. I'm looking in the entire area. I could also do an entrance and an exit and say, I only want to know if there's a license plate going in a certain direction. So we've got that functionality there. Recognition, this is going to look familiar to you. It's exactly what we had on facial recognition, but we're applying it to plates now. So in this case, we've got a successful recognition. What do? Well, we're sending a push notification out, and we got a pop-up message box that's going to come up. We're doing it by all the time schedule. I have a prompt that says plate appeared because it appeared in front of the camera. You'll see where that shows up. And we've enabled that successful recognition. We're going to enable strange plate as well now. And for strange plate, we're going to say do that 24/7. And I want to pop up on that one. So in this case, what we're actually going to do is we will turn that off for one that we know, because we've got two different license plates here that we can kind of mess with. And we're going to turn it on for that one. So we'll apply that. Let's see how this is going to work. So my bullet camera, which is the one on the top right for the one that you see. I'm going to walk out here with a license plate. So went out in the parking lot this morning and grabbed a couple random plates, So here's a plate. And you can see that did not give me a pop-up. I do know that it worked because I've got this set up on this target detection. It just came up this morning, 10:49, so that's right now. So we grabbed that plate, and it was a successful one. And you can see here, GLL 7158. That's the plate. So it actually got that from the image on the plate, which I just find totally amazing. And you can even see if we just kind of randomly walk by with it. See how fast that pops up there? It's just as soon as I move through with it, you start to grab that plate. So that's kind of neat. Now, that's kind of a passive notification. We're not really letting anybody know because it's one that's in our database. But this other plate, I'm going to walk in front with this one. And in this case, we got the grab and we got a pop-up. Now what we're saying is, okay, that plate is not on my database. That's what we call a strange plate. I need to let these guys know. So it popped up on the screen. Again, that alert could have been, a push notification to your phone. It could have been any of those options that we showed you. But again, I think the really important distinction there is what happens when it's a plate that we know versus a plate that we don't know about. So that's really cool. So that was kind of the plate recognition one. And again, that one makes me super excited. I think the plate recognition is really cool. Now, if we go back to the Tripwire, for example, if we do that, we're going to do that on, say, the turret camera. I'm going to enable it. And we're going to go ahead and draw our wire. Actually, I'm on the wrong screen. I'm going to go to Tripwire. We're going to say enable it. And I'm going to draw my line here. So when I walk between the table and the wall, in that direction, I want to know it. So I've got an A to B. In this case, we're looking for people's, vehicles, and non-vehicles. We're looking for anything, which is okay for us now. I'm going to turn that down a little lower so we can actually catch it. I'm going to hit OK. Now, take a look at this. I currently had facial recognition enabled on my turret camera. Now it's saying, hey, I can only do so many things at once. If you're going to turn on Tripwire, we're going to have to turn off face recognition. So that's another thing for you to keep in mind and when you do your installations is what part of the analytics do you want on what part of the installation and how many cameras are you going to need to support that. So keep that in mind. So that'll automatically turn that off for us, and that'll enable the Tripwire. We'll apply that one. And now, when we walk through, it's going to catch us. We didn't set up any notifications, but you can see them popping up in the top right because it saw us go through there. So that said a tripwire, and it also grabbed it as people. So you can tell that it knows that the shape of a person. So there's another example of one. We'll keep moving on here. Intrusion is really similar to Tripwire. I think we have to do that one, but instead of a line, it's a square. So you can say, if we enable that one, you can say, I only want to know when somebody's in, you know, this area. It's one of those where you draw dots and it connects the lines for you. So now if somebody walks into that area, you can see it. Think more of a, I don't know if you had maybe a camera that can see quite a bit, and part of it's maybe a safe. If anybody gets near the safe you want to know, just draw that line around the safe and you'll know when somebody's in that area. So we've got that one.
So Richie, the question is, you can only do one analytic type per camera?
Brett, if you want to answer that one for me, that's what I've seen. Is that correct? One analytics, you know, function per camera?
Cameras could only perform one analytic at a time. So like you had said, if you had, you know, an application where you're looking to do tripwire and facial detection, we would need 2 individual cameras to achieve both of those analytics.
And the only thing I would add to that is, so that's true. If you take a look at the price sheet that we sent out, and if you just join quickly, you'll get it as soon as we wrap up here. And I don't mean to sound like we just want to sell you more stuff kind of an answer, but honestly, some of these cameras are really such a low price that it's not that big of a deal to just add another camera to get that second analytics function. So there is a way to get multiple functions if that's something that you're after. Line crossing counting, we're going to do the same thing as we did on the line crossing, but we're going to actually count this time. So let me cancel that. I actually want to be on the turret camera. We're going to go back to line crossing and counting. And I've already got that one enabled. So I'm going to turn on this statistical OSD, and you'll see what that means in a second. It's actually previewing it right here. If I turn that on, it tells you the number of how many people are there. I'm going to, and this is what I was talking about earlier. I can enable an automatic reset every so often at what time, which will clear these counters back out automatically for you. So you've got that ability right there. We'll apply that one, close out. Now we're looking at turret, which is on the, I feel like I didn't save that. Hang on a second. Turret, counting. Okay. So we're going to walk through the area that we talked about here. I think I had more than one thing turned on there, so we're not. So you see, we're picking up on the top right. What I didn't do is get the counter on. You would see a counter in the top right that gives you the number of people that came in, the number of people that went out, and it ignores anybody else if they're not in this particular area. So that's kind of how the line crossing is going to work on that one when we're counting people. That's going to be pretty much most of what you would do in the analytics part of it. So that's going to be, again, all under this AI event area here. The other things I want to point out as far as notifications, we talk about how important that is. If we go to event notification, you're going to see some different ways to do it. These are your alarm outs. These are the 4, let me kind of break down what these are. You see local 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are outputs that are contact closures that are physically on the recorder itself that I'm hooked up to right here. This last one, bullet 1, which is really cool, there's actually a little terminal block on the back of this camera right near the Ethernet plug, and there's an alarm output on that. So I could even say, based on certain parameters of different analytics functions, let's give us a closure on that. We could either turn a light on, trigger something, or like Brett said, if the camera's by the door, that might be a really easy way to do like a free exit on a access control system. So if we see somebody, we open the door. So a lot of different ways to do the notifications through the alarm outputs. Email is one of the really big ones. All you've got to do is add a person, put their email address in. Again, here's their schedule when they're allowed to get the emails and put it in. One major advancement that we've got in this series of MVRs versus the older ones is you don't have to be responsible for setting up the mail server. You just have to put in an SMTP server, meaning like who's going to send these email alerts for you. Speco's got that all done now. It happens in the background. All you've got to do is put in the email address of the person that they're going to, and it's going to happen for you. So it's super easy. The pop-up videos in the message box, it's, how long do they stay up? That's up for you. You noticed before probably when I did the license plate recognition, that box showed up for like 10 seconds. That's because it was set up for 10 seconds right there. Buzzer, how long does it go for if we have something go to it? Push messages, do we or do we not turn them on? That's off by default, so you're going to want to know to pop in there and turn that on if you want, and what the schedule is. And then we have some other digital deterrent is a way to, you can actually record something and set it up here and say, if we see a certain person in a certain area, actually play an audio output that you can play there. So pretty cool thing to do. Or as Brett was kind of indicating earlier, great way to do like passive promotional things. So if somebody shows up in a certain area of the store, it can play a voice and say, we've got a special on whatever product today. So a lot of different functionality there. Because we're kind of coming up on our hour mark here, I want to get through some more of the other things and we can get you guys out of here on time. The next really cool thing, playback kind of is what it is. When you go to playback, you've got a way to say on the right here, anything that's blue is where we have recording. So we can kind of zoom in and zoom out on this. If you just want to look at a certain time, that's really easy to do. You can go down here and select your date on the calendar. Again, anything that's blue means we have video from it. So here, we actually hooked this up on the 8th. So what happens is, as we start to overwrite the oldest, you'll be able to really easily see here how much video we've got stored. Pick your day and you can do your playback. This is what I would say is like the old way of looking at your playback, right? It's your give me a date and a time and I'll play you the video that I have from that time. Pretty standard stuff. But if we go into the intelligent analytics, this is where it gets really, really cool. So the stuff that we showed you earlier on the analytics is automatic. That's if I see a plate that I don't recognize, give me a push notification. If I see a person in an area that they shouldn't be in, send me an email. Whatever those examples that were used, that's what we did up until this point. Now, this is something that your end user can use at any time to really take advantage of these analytics. So I have face here, and let's say all face events today is already highlighted, and we hit search. Every time we selected every time that it found a face on a camera, it's showing it to us. Now, it's not showing us who it is. We didn't ask it to yet. But we're just saying, show me every face that you saw today. Now, I can click on one of these, and you can see here's the playback showing up on the bottom left. Gives me a couple second clip, real easy to get into, and we've got it. Super easy to do. We can also go back and filter by camera. What camera do we want to look at? That's all up here on the top right. What we could also do now, if we go back to Stranger and hit search, now you can see in this point today, we see many less images. Some of the ones where either it didn't get a good recognition on me or on the dome camera. I don't think I'm in the list on that one, but Barry wasn't added to the list, so we see him in here a few times, so that's really easy to do. If we also back in and say customization, I want to see everything from, let's say like the beginning of January. I know it was put in on the 8th, so we'll just go back to that, to today. And then search. These are all the strangers that we have since we popped this recorder in the room. So I go all the way to the end. This is probably the day we were setting it up, and I was going to show you some of the ones. So here, for example, here's one that this is one of the guys like on the cleaning crew. So he was in at night. We've got him on there. Here's Richard. He's the founder of our company. He was in taking a look at it. So, but he's not in the database, so it knows him as a stranger. So again, on the left here, by saying stranger, I'm excluding anybody who's in any of my facial databases, anybody who I would have taken the picture of. I'm excluding them and just showing strangers. So super easy to do. Now, if we want to get a successful recognition, we have those. Matches to certain people. So we've got that. So that's face. Human body, same deal. Show me every time we have a human body. Vehicle is one I kind of wanted to show. This is really, really cool. The one license plate that I had starts with GLL. That's all I remember. I'm going to type GLL in here. Or say OK to that. And I'm also going to go back to say this week just to get a few more of them in there. And search. So it's kind of a weird demo because I just had the plate in my hand, but imagine if this camera was looking at a parking lot or a driveway or a road, and you had a plate that you put in a partial of, we get all this feedback of all the times we saw this camera, or I mean, if we saw this plate. Super easy to use, really easy for the end user to do. And again, we're just typing in a plate or a partial plate and it pops right up. So really cool. The other plate that we had, I think had RFS in it. So if I do RFS, search that, there's the times we got that plate. So really easy to do. Again, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the intelligent analytics when it comes to the search functionality, but it's really easy to do. The next thing I want to do for you guys actually is I'm going to hop over to screen share, and we're going to show you how the app works. It's all the same stuff. It just looks a little bit different in the app. So we'll do that really quick, and then we'll take a few questions and go from there. All right, bear with me while I load the screen up. Okay, so you guys ought to be able to see my phone now. All I've done is go in to do the screen sharing. I'm going to change it around. I've got a couple different Speco apps, as I said. I'm going to go into Speco Blue, which has 47 notifications because I've been walking in front of all these notifications that I set up. But basically, we scanned the code, got this app going, and now we can see our cameras in the top. You know, same thing as anything else. We can go into any one and kind of go into one channel at a time if we want to do that. We could view them all at a time. But in any event, we've got all our cameras here. The stuff that I want to show you guys that's really different and really cool about the analytics is going to be down on this menu on the bottom right, the three dots. I'm going to hit that. And now I get kind of a different menu to pop up. The first thing is notifications are enabled. This is a really easy way for an end user if they're getting bombarded with notifications because something's going on and maybe it doesn't matter to them at that particular moment, they can turn off those notifications. Just be careful with that. If they turn it off and they forget to turn it back on, they're not going to get the push notifications that they wanted to get in the future. So be careful with that one. A couple of really cool things. Adding person I'm going to click on right now. And you can see I'm actually kind of looking at my desk here. But this is the easiest way to add a person. If I turn it on to selfie mode, I could add myself to it. Or that one picture that I showed you in the database with my daughter in there, that's how we added her in. So it's really easy to add a person, put their name in, tell it what group it's going to go in, and it's just super easy to go in there and add a user that way. I would recommend doing it like that because it keeps your users out of the deep menus of the recorder. Really easy to do. Next thing, you could take a picture here and search by it, just for whatever stuff that you have. Search by name is a really cool one. If I just start to type, like Ben is already in there, so I could click. As I type, it puts the ones that are in. So I look and say, yeah, that's the one I want to take a picture or that I want to look for. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of the month, say OK, start searching. And now here comes every video that that person shows up in with a date and timestamp of when they showed up and what the similarity was. It's your percent match. So I can click on any one of those, click the play button, and now we're playing the video clip from when it found him. So you'll see we got a couple seconds before, and then he shows up, looks at the camera. So there you go. Easiest way to search for a person. If we go to event, we can pick faces. We can say just search for humans. Or again, my all-time favorite here, the vehicle. If we go back and say, let's search from the beginning of the month. We go back to that one plate we've got. I'll go to that GLL, say done, search. And just look how quick that is. Already, every license plate that had GLL in it from the month is coming up in my list. So, and then we're back at the home screen there. So, folks, I know we kind of ran a little past our 1 hour limit there. That's really everything I had to show you. Let me hop back into the presentation here. If anybody had any questions, feel free to start shouting them out on the chat, and we'll either answer them in the chat or we'll answer them out loud so you guys have them. And kind of a couple closing thoughts we'll go through here. Okay, so kind of in closing here, if you registered ahead of time, you would have already gotten our email. If you haven't, we'll send that to you, as we already said. We want to thank you for your time today, and we want to get these products in your hands, so we've got a bit of a discount in there for you, and we'd like to see you take advantage of that if it's something that you want to try out on your own. Again, just game-changing, amazing functionality, especially considering the price that you get on this stuff. And then finally, I think the one thing that I wanted to throw out there is just kind of some food for thought, so to speak, is this idea that you now have the ability to do those basic installations. If you want to go out and really quickly put some cameras in, wire them up, and then kind of switch over to plugging them in and getting out of there, just doing a 24/7 recording, that's still really easy to do, very affordable, no problem. But with these analytics, yeah, you're going to spend a little more time setting it up. You're certainly going to have a bit of time spent teaching your customer how to use it. So I think you should get more for that installation. You can have a basic and an enhanced installation, perhaps. So there's a way for this technology to put more money on the table for you out of these jobs. So just kind of something to think about. Also, as far as your end users kind of getting familiar with it, there's a QR code on the recorder your customers can scan, and that gives them a little section on Speco's website that kind of shows them what's available and some quick tips on how to use certain functions. That's super easy, so it doesn't put all the training burden on you. That's out there for you. So lots of different options there. But that's kind of what we have. We really appreciate you guys joining us today. Sorry we ran over a little bit, but there's a lot to talk about here. Any questions? On-VIF compatibility, absolutely. So on-VIF cameras will work on here. My understanding, though, and Brett, please correct me if I'm wrong, if they're on-VIF but not Speco cameras, you're not going to get any AI or any of the analytics functions.
That's correct. We'll get easy search, but we won't be able to tap into any of those analytics like facial detection or license plate recognition.
Yeah. What does the back of the DVR look like? Sure, let's do it here. Let's see. I'm going to have to unplug one of them.
And Richie, if you could just hold up the recorder just so they could see the cheat sheet that they actually put on top of the recorder itself.
Yeah, so actually this is something, this comes in every recorder now. It's on like a card on the top, and it's basic stuff like, scan here for quick start, how to do the easy search functionality. Again, stuff to take the burden off you guys so you don't get that phone call. How do I search for video on my recorder, right? So here's the back of it. You've got the IP ports for your cameras. That's the PoE ports. We got the IP port that goes to the customer network. That's how we get out to the internet. USB port for your mouse. And then we've got the HDMI and the VGA on there as well. And then this last section that's green on the side, those are going to be your alarm outputs that we talked about.
So recorders up to 16 channels have onboard PoE. Once we go up to a 32-channel unit, that's going to have a private port, and we're going to have to use an external PoE switch.
Yeah, and to give you guys some size reference, these have gotten really small. This is not rack width. This is like, it's an 8.5 by 11. It's like a foot wide. It's really pretty trim. If you want to rack mount it, you just grab a rack shelf.
And Richie, with all the cameras that we had displayed, all those cameras come with the junction box included in the box itself. So it's one less variable that you guys have to worry about when going through the installation itself. The junction box comes included in the box.
Great point. And not only junction box, you're also going to get the waterproof connectors. If you put them on your Cat 5 before you put your RJ45 on, probably hard to see in my picture here, but these connectors have like a cam on them. So you would have put the other part on here first, then you slide it up and over and twist it, and it's now a weatherproof junction between your wire and the wire that came on the back of the camera. So that's a good point. This is the turret camera. This is one of our favorite from a form factor standpoint. We kind of like it because it's got the flat lens. The dome cameras you got to be careful about with some of the reflection you get depending on what angle it's mounted on. The turret camera's got that nice clean look of a dome camera, but the flat front like a bullet camera does. So we really like those, and they're nice and compact. This is one of the dome cameras. Comes with a really nice mount. This is the wall mount for it. So all of your wiring is done really inside the mount. This goes on the wall, and then your dome's hanging out underneath it. It's really clean look. We just kind of had it standing up on here to work better for our kind of purposes. And then here's the bullet. This is the one that we did the license plate recognition with. So we've got the sunshade that we can move kind of in and out on the top. Real robust mount. And this is also where I was mentioning this particular one has this Phoenix connector on the back, which is going to be your contact closure output. This would be a way to do a local, contact closure trigger based on an event that you want. Yeah, wet locations, absolutely. I see Brett answered that. Absolutely. Just, we picked the right one, but no problem there. Yeah, the back boxes are super, super nice, although foam gaskets come in there, so it's truly watertight. Makes a big difference.
And Richie, the warranty on these units, just to reiterate the quality behind these, Speco honors a 5-year warranty on all of the cameras and recorders, 3-year warranty on the hard drives themselves. But, if there's ever an issue, you could either go to Worthington or come directly to Speco, and we'd be more than happy to, swap those defective or whatever had be the issue, and make sure you get your customer back up and running in as little time as possible.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason, we exclusively work with Speco for video surveillance. We don't carry another brand, and it's because we really appreciate and value the service that we get, and that in turn benefits you guys. I mean, we don't see bad product often. Once in a while, when you do a lot of it, you're going to see something come through once in a while, but it's all about the service that backs that up, and we find that the service we get from Speco is outstanding, and I think that's one reason that we like to stick with them, and it works for you guys as well.
And on the note of availability, everything is in stock, fortunately. So absolutely no issue with getting inventory, especially if you're in a crunch and it's a time sensitive project.
Yep. Any other questions out there? Looks like their questions are wrapped up. Well, with that, first of all, Brett, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. That was super helpful. And to everybody who joined us, we appreciate your time. We know it's valuable, and we're glad you're able to join us. Hopefully you got something out of this. Pretty quick ram through of the features at the end there. Anything else that we can help you with, please give us a call and we'll explain it. We'll get you a demo, whatever we need to do. And we'll go from there. So stand by for a wrap-up email here, and otherwise give us a call. Anybody on the team here will be more than happy to help you, and we really appreciate your time again. We hope to see you soon. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Did great, Richie. Thank you so much, and greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Brett. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye now.